to Chasing the Insights, the podcast designed for you, the marketer, the entrepreneur, the small business owner. I'm your host, Vince Warnock, and in each episode we talk to the biggest and brightest brains in marketing, extracting every ounce of insight to give you that unfair advantage as you grow your business.
Hello, beautiful people. Welcome to another episode of Chasing the Insights. How you all doing? I'm Vince Warnock, and thank you so much for taking time out of your very busy day, oh my goodness, to join me here as I get to talk to some of the most interesting and colorful people you are ever going to meet. And I mean that very specifically because I'm about to introduce you to Dr. Chris Whaley. But before I do that, you know I've got a couple of quick housekeeping things. So first of all, I don't want you to miss a single episode of Chasing the Insights. So whatever platform, whatever app, whatever tool, basically however you're listening to this show right now, make sure you give that subscribe or follow button a little push. That way you're notified every single time there's a new episode. And we do multiple episodes per week because, well, to be frank, we've got an amazing lineup of guest speakers who are all just wanting to get you content to help you move the needle for your business. Plus, speaking of good quality content, you also need to check out the Chasing the Insights Insider Club. Not only is it a great way to support the show, but also for $10 a month, so the price of 2 cups of coffee a month, you get something far, far more valuable than coffee. That is something that is going to feed your mind, feed your creativity, and feed your entrepreneurship. It is, of course, exclusive content designed just for you. This is masterclasses, downloads, so much more behind the scenes in the podcast and that as well. So go check that out at chasingtheinsights.com/insider, or just go to the website. You know how websites work. There's a menu there. You click on the item. Ta-da! You're magically on the page you want. Anyway, my friends, that is not why we are here. I'm so looking forward to this episode. I am here to introduce you to somebody that when I met and heard his story, I'm like, you know what? I just need to find a way to get him on the show because this is genuinely intriguing. And that is Dr. Chris Whaley, who was a professional wrestler for 10 years back in 1978 to 88. After graduating from Southwest Baptist Theological Seminary in Fort Worth, Texas. He's now been a pastor since that time. He's also the author of 2 published books, The Masked Saint and Harold's Heavenly Christmas. And he has a 3rd book that's coming out in 2022 called entitled Mr. President. Plus, of course, he's married to his high school sweetheart of 46 years. And I thought I was going strong at 27 years. You're doing really well. And 2 married daughters and 6 grandchildren. My goodness, it is such an honor having you on the show. Dr. Chris Whaley, thank you for joining us.
Hey, Vince, it is such an honor to be on your show. You know, I've been doing so much reading about you and looking at all of your accomplishments, and just be able to be on your show is quite an honor and definitely a treat for my week. And I thank you so much for having me.
Oh, my goodness. Well, it is honestly, like I said, the moment you and I met, I heard your story, your backstory, which they'll find out very shortly. And I was just like, oh my goodness, I don't even care what we talk about. I just need you on the show because that in itself is fascinating. But before we get into the topic, so we've got a topic today which is really important. Every entrepreneur needs to be leaning in right now. Everyone listening to this podcast should be leaning in and paying attention to this because we're going to be talking about finding and following your dream, which has been a mark on Chris's life as well. But before we get into that, Chris, give us your backstory, how you got to where you are now, why you're so passionate about what you do.
Well, I was the sickly kid growing up, constantly in and out of the hospital, mostly with pneumonia. In the 4th grade, I had polio and viral encephalitis at the same time. I was in the hospital for like 3 months. And then got out and back in the hospital with pneumonia. I had a great doctor, and he was working so hard to trying to find out why my immune system was not working. They sent me to a big clinic in Central Florida. Finally, they found out the reason that my immune system was not working was because of all of the allergies that I had, which I had about 200 allergies. So they started treating me for that, which I was on those medications up until I was a junior in college. And then he also got me going to the gym, working out and doing a lot of cardiovascular work. And he just really pushed me. And I took to it. I love going to the gym. I love working out. My body started growing. I started putting on weight. I mean, when I was in junior high school, I weighed about 100 pounds. And then after they finally found out, I just started putting on weight, putting on muscle. And when you're a kid and when you're in the hospital a lot, you watch a lot of TV, and then you get your days and your nights mixed up. And late at night, about the only thing that was on was professional wrestling. And as a kid, I just loved professional wrestling, and I watched it. And when I was home and I could get my dad to take me to the live matches, I did it. And I grew up dreaming about one day being a professional wrestler. And then finally, after graduating from college, coming back to Central Florida, my wife was a high school math teacher, and she was teaching at her alma mater, and she was grading papers one afternoon, and I got the newspaper, and there was an ad in there. It said "Wanted Professional Wrestlers," and I picked it up, and I was so excited, and I took it over to her and showed it to her, and I said, look at this," and she just kind of rolled her eyes and went back to grading papers, and I got a bag together, and I drove over to Tampa, and I walked into a gym, and there the guy who was training was a guy I watched growing up. He wrestled as the Great Malenko. He had two sons that were also wrestlers, Dean Malenko, who is now running the AEW here in the States. And so I trained for 6 months, and then I had my first match.
Fantastic. Oh my goodness. That's exciting. Now, your story didn't stop there though, did it? Because the important twist is coming out. So I'll keep you before, because I'm going to get way too excited, by the way, talking to you, man. I'm just going to dig into the story hardcore. So I'm going to resist the urge. I'm going to let you keep talking. So tell us what happened after you became this professional wrestler for 10 years.
Well, after wrestling?
While you're wrestling as well. Yeah.
Oh yeah,
I'm drawing you, of course, to the exciting part of your story, which one of your books is based on.
Oh yeah. Well, while I was in wrestling, it was just awesome to be able to wrestle some of the biggest names in the business. I wrestled the Undertaker, the Ultimate Warrior. I worked against the Freebirds. I worked against 3 World Heavyweight Wrestling champions. And just really, every time I got into the ring, it was exciting. It was never boring. I looked forward to every match I ever had. And then when that was my dream. But my calling was to be a pastor. God had called me to be a pastor, and I graduated from seminary in May of 1988. And then I went to my first church. And I think this is what you wanted to talk about. When I went to my first church, I started handling some things more as a professional wrestler than as a pastor. It started with a young lady who would drop her children off at our children's program, and then she would come into the sanctuary for the service. And she was always the last one in, and she'd be the first one out. Yeah. And in one particular Sunday, she came in with sunglasses on. And when the service was over, I always stood at the front of the church and shook hands with people as they left. And on this particular Sunday, she was the last person to come out. And when she came out, she took my hand with both of hers, and she had her head down, and tears were coming down her cheeks. And I lifted her sunglasses, and she had 2 black eyes. Wow. And it just enraged me. I mean, any man that would hit a woman is a dirtbag. Yeah. And so I said, "Hey, I'm gonna go see your husband." And she said, "No, don't do that. I'm afraid he'll hurt you." And I said, "I'm not worried about it." And so I went to his house and called him out and said, "I just came by to see how you do against somebody who was able to fight back, because you're a stinking bully, and bullies only pick on people that they know that they can beat. And beating up the mother of your children isn't a very masculine thing. So here I am. Let's see how you'll do." And so we got to tango a little bit, and it was great because it was a great stress relief.
Yeah, and, I can imagine. Yeah,
yeah, and so that was the very first episode. Kind of the first episode of The Masked Saint, and it just blossomed from there. I just continued to have episode after episode where I handled more as a professional wrestler than as a pastor.
Yeah, well, let's call it what it is. You became a legitimate vigilante / superhero, which is why I get overexcited, because I'm a giant nerd and a giant superhero fan as well. Yeah. But you literally became the Masked Saint, didn't you? And you became this superhero essentially. But But then that tempered over time, didn't it? So obviously you're not out there fighting crime at the moment that we know of. Although I must say I've never seen you and Batman in the same room together. Just saying.
I still have episodes. My last church, the final church that I was the senior pastor at. I went out one day to go make a hospital visit, and I heard the F-bomb drop in the parking lot, and that'll get your attention in a church parking lot.
Yeah.
So I looked around, and I saw this guy slapping his pregnant girlfriend. And so I screamed across the parking lot, "Hey," and he screamed back, and he started cussing at me. So I started walking towards him. I dropped my glasses. I took my coat off. I took my tie off, and he started walking towards me, and we met, and I said, "Hey, young man," I said, this is a church parking lot. And you shouldn't be talking that way, and you shouldn't be using that language in a church parking lot. Anywhere you shouldn't be using that language. And you certainly shouldn't be slapping your pregnant. I didn't know if it was his wife or his girlfriend. It was his girlfriend. Yeah. You shouldn't be slapping, a pregnant girl. And then he lunged towards me. He said, "None of your blanking business." And then wham, we got into it. And so I body slammed him on the concrete, and it was really a great visit with him. Yeah.
Nicely.
So that was one of the last episodes, and I had to stand before the church and tell them what I did, and I said, "Hey, you're not going to believe what I did," and I told them what I did, and I said, "I'm sorry, I don't want to embarrass the church," and they all stood and they applauded. Yeah. So I didn't get fired because of it either.
Good to know. Yeah, it's always, I must admit, it's always a fine line. I'm very triggered by, I can't stand injustice. I can't stand any kind of violence towards anybody anybody.
Me either.
Yeah, just anybody in general, particularly women and children and things like that, because I grew up in that environment. So to see that makes me very triggered. So there's part of me, and this is where I know you'd struggle with this as well. There's part of you that genuinely, like on the inside, you get that anger rise up and you want to strike out at that person, but you also know that person needs your help, and that person needs that needs somebody there on their side. So it's always that struggle where part of you is just going, yes, this is awesome. They got their comeuppance, but the other part of you is going, but they're also a human being who's flawed and needs love and needs people as well. So I know that's something you've always struggled with. Yeah.
Well, I had a great influence in my life when I was a child, and she used to quote Edmund Burke, who said that the only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is for good men to do nothing.
Yep.
And I took that to heart, because I believe that the only thing necessary for triumph of evil is for good men to do nothing, and I'm not going to stand around and do nothing.
I love that, man. I love that. Now, my big question, though, on all that backstory, the most important question is, did you ever get a fight alongside the Bushwhackers? Because for New Zealand wrestlers, they were pretty much the epitome.
No, I think they went to the WWF right as I was getting out of wrestling. So, but one of them lives here in Florida, down in South Florida.
Yep.
So I have friends in wrestling, and they're always sending me pictures with them and Luke, I think it is.
Yeah.
Awesome. So.
Wow. Okay.
They were awesome. They were awesome. I loved it. The first time I ever saw them on TV was I was watching the WWF, and Bobby Heenan was a commentator. Yeah. And as they were walking out, he said, "Well, there you have it, folks. Living proof that the Three Stooges had children."
Yeah, that's a weirdly great endorsement for New Zealand, and also an insult as well. But we were so proud of it. I grew up with wrestling as well. We had over here we had a show called On the Mat, and then we had wrestlers from all over the world come over. So we had Ric Flair. I remember accidentally starting a riot with a friend of mine. So we were there together, and he was the only autograph that we didn't have. And he was just in a fight where he lost. And I don't know, I know that these things are kind of predetermined to a degree, but he had cut his head in there, and his whole white hair just went completely pink. And he went under us, and we just wanted his autograph. And he was in a foul mood. And I reached out and said, "Hey, can you sign the autograph?" And he swore at me, and he yelled at me. And that started someone going, hey, and they started throwing beer cans at him. And it started this massive riot of people throwing beer cans.
Oh,
and
wow.
My Robbie, like the two of us, we were only really young. We just snuck out of there, man, going, oh, we're going to get in trouble. We're going to get in trouble.
Oh,
but
my God.
it was such a thrill, the atmosphere in that there. It was awesome. Yeah.
That was Ric Flair?
Ric Flair, yeah. We're back in his young days, man, long before he became the Ric Flair.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah.
No, he's a super, super nice guy. So
yeah.
That's amazing that happened.
Yeah.
Too bad.
Yeah. Oh, it gave us a very cool story and a very cool memory. So even though it was terrible at the time, we talked about that. We were the hit at school for the next like week or two. It was amazing. Anyway, we are going to talk about this topic, which is finding and following your dreams. And one of the marks of you, and this is the thing that really stood out to me when I first met you as well, is finding out all of this stuff, finding out the passion that you had for wrestling, and then being able to pursue that despite where you had come from. That passion for faith and being able to follow that, the passion to help other people and to be able to become essentially a vigilante. All of these things are about you finding and following your dreams. So we're going to dig into this because for a lot of entrepreneurs, this is a question that comes up consistently is, how do I know that I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing? How do I know this is my dream? But before we kind of get into that, I want you to define for us a little bit about what it means when we talk about finding and following the dream. Like, what is that dream that we talk of? Is that dream financial goal, dream job, dream hobby, dream? What is that dream that you're talking about?
I think, we can all look at something that we know we can do. I'm educated. I'm in great health. There's a lot of things I know I can do.
Yeah.
I think a dream is something that you've got to keep on the very edge to say, hey, I don't know if I can do this, but I am going to pursue this with all of my might. Yeah. And that's what I believe. A dream is stretching it. Something that you really don't know if you can, but you're not going to give up until you do. That's my definition of it.
I love that definition. My goodness, that's got everyone thinking already, which is awesome. Now, we're going to talk about how to find and follow that dream. And I know you go through, you talk through this process and things. So take us through the process we need to be able to find and follow what the dream is for us individually as entrepreneurs.
Yeah. Well, I never thought that I would get the opportunity to fulfill my dream of professional wrestling, because in my day, back in the 70s, it was not what you know, it's who you know.
Yeah. And
so it's not the easiest to get into. And then when I saw that ad, I pursued it. But even as a young man, I had this acrostic that I use not just for wrestling, but for a lot of my dreams.
Yeah.
And that is, you take that word dream, the D, you got to have a desire. You are got to be burning up with desire. You have to have that unbeatable desire to fulfill your dream.
Yeah.
R is recognize. You have to recognize the direction that you want to go in, and you have to follow that direction. E, it goes right with it. You've got to explore every opportunity that comes your way to fulfilling your dreams. And that means work on your part. You've got to do the homework. You've got to look at it and see every reason that you can, not the reasons that you can't, but the reasons that you can. You've got to have an ability. That doesn't necessarily mean that, if you don't have that certain ability to fulfill your dream, what you've got to do is you've got to prepare. That means, well, for me, it meant having my body in the best shape that I could possibly be in, because people don't want to look at bad bodies in the ring. So I had to work on that. It meant getting my body ready and training and being prepared to do what I wanted to dream. And then the M is for motivation. You cannot give up. You have to motivate yourself every day. Every day, you find a reason that you are going to, not a reason that you can't.
I love that. Find a reason that you are going to. That's awesome. So we got dream, which is desire, recognize, exploring, ability, which is about actually training yourself and finding the ability that you need to be able to do this, and then motivation. There's a couple of those I want to dig into a little bit more, which is the recognize, and I think it's tied to the exploring part as well. But for a lot of people, so for you, for example, Chris, you very much identified early on what it was that you were passionate about. You said, I'm passionate about wrestling. So when you saw that, you had the desire already, you recognized that and went, okay, I'm going to now explore what that looks like. But for a lot of them, they're at the point where a lot of people are at the point where they don't actually 100% know if this is their dream or not. Like, as in, they have a picture in their head, they think this is the lifestyle I want to lead, or this is the type of business I want to create, or this is the impact I want to have in a certain area. There's a little part of them going on, but I'm not 100% sure that is my actual dream, or is that just my limited thinking based on my upbringing and all that kind of stuff. So how do we know at that recognize phase that that is actually something that is both worth pursuing and something that is right for us to pursue?
Well, I think, I'll never forget talking to my mentor and asking him that same question. And, he looked at me and he said, well, if you can find anything else in the world to do, go do it. But if this is what you're going to do, he said, then why are you even asking me that question? Because if you continue to ask the questions, all you're looking for is excuses not to do what you want to do.
Nice.
So you follow it, and you just don't give up.
Yeah.
And
I like that. And then that does tie right into the exploring part of it as well, doesn't it? Because the fact is, you're never going to know if that is your dream unless you actually do exactly what you've just said. You throw yourself at this, you motivate yourself, you explore, you train yourself with the abilities, you have that desire and everything. So sometimes it's about doing that. And through the exploring phase, you may find that it actually leads to a different tangent, or it leads to something else. Because if I look at my life, Chris, I always thought, early on, I genuinely wanted to be a superhero. That was pretty much my childhood. So much so I got into electronics, computer, and software engineering because I thought, hey, at least I can build all the gadgets for Batman and James Bond and that. Discovered they're not only not real, but also it's not really that interesting a job.
Right.
But then discovered my real passion was around people and understanding how people move and how they think and what they do. But even then, that changed careers probably about 5 or 6 times after that until I'm doing what I am now, which is what I truly believe is my dream. Like this is the role I was meant to do. I know I'm impacting so many different people, and I love what I do. And I love all of my clients. I love the coaching work. I love seeing them get the breakthroughs that they do. But that's based on what I know now. And if you had asked me 5 years ago, I would have said, being the chief marketing officer at Signal Insurance was my dream job because the pay was ridiculous. The office was the sweetest in the entire building, second only to the CEO, of course. Traveled around the world, did all the things that most people would see as success. I had all of that and was getting all the wins. So our definition of our dream, our definition of what we're called to do changes with more information as it's unveiled. So I think that's super important. Well, the last question I've got for you then is you talk about the last step there, motivation. I love what you said. You got to find reasons to be able to do this and accomplish it. For anyone who's really struggling with that at the moment, and they're just because, as we know, life happens, and 2020 and 2021 have been a little bit difficult for a lot of people, if we're honest. Because a lot of people have found that the things that they thought were secure are no longer secure. The things that they thought were their dream are now no longer there. So for people like that are pursuing their dream and really trying hard to keep motivated, but keep hitting barrier after barrier, what's your best advice to them around making sure that they do, like how they can keep themselves motivated?
It's an amazing thing, Vince. You mentioned COVID. I heard this guy who was being heavily impacted by COVID, and he had this, office building. He had these employees, and he had all of this stuff going on, and it's affecting his business. And then he did a brainstorming with a couple of top people, friends of his, and then he changed things. Everybody started working from home. And he found out that his business was increasing even with people working at home, and he got rid of the office building, which saved him, and was able to sell that and make money and invest that. And so for some people, it's this is a terrible expression, but it's one that my dad used to say. You can't make chicken salad out of chicken crap. But he was able to make chicken salad out of chicken crap. You look around for those opportunities. I have a great friend. I called him because I was telling him about you, got him to go on the internet, look you up and all, because he's a small business guy.
Yeah.
And everything he touches turns to gold. When we graduated from high school, he didn't go to college, and this guy's 10 times smarter than I am. He became an electrician, then he became an instrument tech, and somebody said, you can go to Ohio, work at a nuclear plant up there and make six figures. This is back in the 70s.
Yeah.
And so he loaded up his wife and two little boys, went up to Ohio and he bought a little mobile home and lived there for 3 years, saved up all of his money. He saved up $275,000. He came back to Florida. He was going to open up a Dairy Queen, and they wouldn't loan him the money because he didn't have a job. And he said, I got $275,000. They said, you don't have a job. So he got a job doing instrument tech, and he got this fabulous job.
Wow.
They gave him a brand new car to drive, and he's making lots of money to do this. And it was to calibrate the water supply for the city of St. Pete. And then just a couple of months after he started, the guy came and he said, hey, listen, the contract's up, and we're not gonna rebid the contract, so you're gonna lose your job. And he said, well, can I bid on it? And the guy said, well, sure, go ahead. He did his homework, man. He started doing his homework.
Yeah.
And he bid on it, and he got it. It was $1 million contract. And he's one of those guys. Every obstacle he sees, he said there's a rainbow somewhere.
Oh,
and
absolutely.
that's what he did. It's what he's looking for. And everything this guy touches turns to gold. And so all your entrepreneurs that are listening to this, you just look for that rainbow when everybody else are seeing clouds.
Yeah. And I love that there's a key point that you put in there as well that you just talked about with you talking to your friend. And that is, because this is what I saw as well when COVID hit. To be honest, it didn't really affect my business at all. I had left Cigna prior to COVID with the goal of just writing my next book. And that was it. I'm like, right, I'm just going to be a full-time author. Turns out that's really boring. And it's not really something that is conducive to my ADHD, that's for sure. So I'm all over the show going, I need something else to occupy my time. So I started writing multiple books, launching the podcast. But the coaching side of things came about because of seeing other people's need. And it really was seeing other people out there who were really struggling. And one of the things I noticed is there are those that in the midst of that, like challenges, in the midst of those obstacles and challenges, they can see that rainbow that you're talking about. But there are others that need to do exactly what you described, which is actually reach out to somebody else to show them the rainbow. Because you've got to surround yourself with people, because often when you're in the midst of, some pretty dark times, or you're in the midst of a lot of challenges, the pressure can make it actually quite hard for us to stay optimistic, stay positive, and see that rainbow. So I love what you shared there. Look, this has been fantastic, Chris. I really, really enjoyed this episode already. But we are at the point of the show where I do have to ask you the same question of all my guests, which is, what are the 3 practical tips you advise every entrepreneur to do right now to move the needle for their business?
Number one is you can't undo your past. What you have to do is you learn from it and you overcome the rough spots. The second one is you can change your present every day and gain confidence. There's always going to be those adjustments that you have to make every day, and it shouldn't be a shock to you. You should start looking for them. And number 3, you take your past and your present and you fulfill your dreams in the future, because you're going to learn from both of them, the past and the present, to make sure that you win in the future.
I love that. Wise words, man. See, we could have done a whole podcast episode on every single one of those points. Well, Dr. Chris, this has been absolutely fantastic. I just want to thank you so much for being on the show and sharing your story, which I know is going to get so many people listening to this again and again, because it is genuinely fascinating. And also thank you for, like you said, that mark on your life where it is about following your dreams. And that is truly inspiring to a lot of people as well. So I just want to thank you that you've inspired everyone listening to this right now to actually find and follow what their dreams are as well. And also, I'm going to leave links to everywhere you can connect with Dr. Chris on the show notes of this episode. So you guys know what to do, right? Go to chasingtheinsights.com. Look for this episode. You're going to see a pile of links in there. You can see where you can connect with Dr. Chris on social, but you're also going to see links to his books, The Masked Saint and Harold's Heavenly Christmas. Go and buy those books. You are not going to regret it. I've got my order of The Masked Saint coming, so I'm very excited about that. So yeah, Dr. Chris, thank you so much for joining us on the show.
Thank you, Vince, for having me. You know, I talked about my dreams and all, and I said that was my dream, but my calling was to be a pastor. Yeah. And I got to tell you that the last 30 plus years that I have served God as a pastor have also been the most rewarding years of my life. And I'm so thankful for a loving, forgiving God and what he did for me in my life.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Chris. Like I said, I'm going to leave links to everywhere people can connect with you on the show notes. But also don't forget to subscribe and follow this podcast if you haven't already. You know what to do. There's a little subscribe or follow button. Give that a push. That way you're notified every single time. And of course, don't forget to check out the Insider Club at chasingtheinsights.com/insider for your exclusive access to content that is going to help you move the needle for your business. Anyway, my friends, I know you're all hanging out right now. I know you guys well. I know what's going through your mind. You're going, Vince, I need to go and get a copy of that Masked Saint book. I need to go and find out because I always dreamt of being a superhero or a vigilante myself. Of course you did. We're all human. But before you do that, I want you to pause. You do need to do that, of course. You need to go and get your copy of the book. But before you do that, I want you to pause because I want you to be really, really present for this because I think you need to hear this. You see, you, my friend, are something genuinely quite special. You are an entrepreneur. And I know it's a weird world we live in where we surround ourselves with all these other entrepreneurs and we seem to think everybody out there is birthing some company or creating some company or some business so all over the show. But the reality is quite far from that. The reality is that you are one of a very small percentage of human beings that have the courage, the tenacity, and the passion to birth something new into this world. To literally take a seed, a thought, just something that doesn't yet exist, the concept, and bringing it into existence. Think about that for a moment. I happen to think that is incredible. But more than that, I also think it is something worth recognizing, it's worth acknowledging, and worth celebrating on your life. So on behalf of Dr. Chris and myself, we just want to wish you all of the health, all of the wealth, all of the happiness, all the success, and all the love that you so rightfully deserve. And I want you to do me a couple of quick favors as well. And these are really important. The first of this is I want you to close your eyes. But if you're driving, maybe don't close your eyes. Okay, maybe pull over, or when you get home, you can listen to this part again. But I want you to close your eyes and I want you to picture your favorite ever client. You know the one. You know the one that every time they contact you, you're like, oh, yes, this is it. I can't wait to help them. You can't wait to jump on a Zoom call or jump in the DMs or reply to their emails, whatever it is there, you get excited about that person. I want you to close your eyes and I want you to picture them. I want you to picture the language you use when you're talking to them. I want you to picture how you encourage them, how you inspire them, how you empower them. I want you to picture what happens when they succeed and you celebrate with them, what happens when they fall down and you pick them up and dust them off and get them back in the right direction. I want you to picture what you do every single time and what you say every single time they hit an obstacle as well, to encourage them and get them back on track. I want you to picture all of those interactions and those things. And then, my friend, I want you to do something really, really special. I want you to treat yourself in the exact same way. You see, the world needs what you're doing, but more than that, it needs more of you in it. So I just want to ask you to do me a second favor now. And this is really important because as we talked about, entrepreneurship is kind of a roller coaster on the best days. You know, we have those days where you wake up and you're crushing it and you got new clients signing left, right, and center. And you're like, yeah, I'm on top of the world. I'm finding my dream and I'm following it. And then other days you're going, the dream kind of feels a little bit like a nightmare. And I just don't want to get out of bed right now. And things are a little bit scary or things are a little bit uncertain. On those days, I want you to do me the second favor. And this is really important. I want you to know and understand this fundamental truth. And that truth is there are a whole pile of people in this world that genuinely want you to succeed. So reach out to them. Reach out to your mentors, reach out to your coaches, reach out to your peers, reach out to your friends and family if that's appropriate. Reach out to Dr. Chris, reach out to myself. We are in your corner and we want you to succeed. So keep putting one foot in front of each other, my friend. Keep pressing in because like I said, the world needs what you're doing. But remember, more than that, it needs more of you in it. Now, this is Chasing the Insights. I'm Vince Warnock. You, my friend, are an absolute freaking legend. Don't you ever forget that, and don't you ever let anybody tell you otherwise. I will see you in the next episode.